Welcome to another episode of the Jobology podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and my guest today is someone that I've known for my whole life. She's my old next door neighbor. Her name is Kelsey, and she is the communications and marketing manager for a pharmaceutical company. She's going to talk to us all about how they actually created a position just for her, and she's going to tell us all about how she gets to use creativity in her daily work life. So without further ado, Kelsey. Thank you for joining me today, Kelsey.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How's your day going so far before we get too into this?
Oh, I wrapped up working.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah, like a half hour before, and then I sat down and was looking at your questions you'd sent over, and realizing that I like my job. So
Nice. That's always a big plus is being able to like your job. Um, we always like to start out on the Jobology podcast here by creating a baseline so that kind of everybody knows what we're talking about. So I know that I kind of just introed your job a little bit, title, but if you could, in your words, either say, "This is what I do if I were to run into you, in the neighborhood and be like, hey, what are you up to nowadays?" This is what you would tell me, versus like, what's your actual job title?
manager of marketing and communications. There's a lot that can kind of be folded into that. But for me, I take care of basically anything external facing for the company that I work for. So that could be social media posts, it could be stuff that's on our website, it can be helping manage external teams and vendors who do things like branding and other conferences, things like that. Yeah, so basically anything external that people are going to see presented about the company comes from me.
Okay, gotcha. And I mean, if you want to be specific, you're more than welcome to be specific. If you kind of just want to be general, you're more than welcome to be general. If you don't want to talk about it at all, you can pass on the question too. Can you kind of give us an insight for what kind of company that you're working for?
Sure, sure. So it's a pharmaceutical company um, that it's got kind of an interesting structure. There's like a
Hmm.
parent company that then owns multiple subsidiaries underneath that, and so I am do marketing for the parent company as well as two of the subsidiaries.
Okay.
So it's not everything that they own. There's other people who do that, but there's a good chunk of it that I take care of.
That falls to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the biotech realm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's really
That's
interesting.
cool. Yeah, there's probably a lot of interesting things that happen on a daily basis. So now that we know that you're working for pharmaceutical biotech company, doing the marketing communications manager, is there a why you get into this job? Is there like a, I mean, like I said, I've known you my whole life. I would have gone something on the more like, drawing the bottles for the pharmaceutical company, things like that. But is there a why, like why this particular job?
Um, yeah, it's a little bit roundabout. I went to UCSD and graduated with a degree in physiology and neuroscience. So I have always really loved science. I never changed my major. But I graduated into the middle of the aftermath of the 2008 recession. So there weren't any entry level, jobs available, even in the labs. So that was kind of the path I was heading. But, then I had to start paying student loans. So I kind of bounced from job to job, whatever I could do, mostly administrative, until I actually ended up in an administrative job at this company, the first iteration of this company. And from there, I moved to project management stuff, and then I moved into some quality stuff, and then I moved into like a project where I sort of owned that whole process. But throughout all of that, I would always make it known that I really enjoyed art and being creative and thought that there was a really great intersection between, creativity and art and science.
Yeah.
And so that basically is what led me to then get promoted to this position, which they actually created for me there.
Nice. Hey, that's always a
Yeah,
benefit when your job's willing to do things to, like, keep you. They're like, "We
definitely.
don't want you going anywhere, we'll make you a position." Like,
Right.
"Okay,
So that's
well."
that's kind of what happened. There was a definite gap there anyways, and then I had spent a lot of time, 5 years almost, building a reputation as the creative employee. Everybody knew that I had that side of what I liked to do.
Mhm.
Um, and it started to bleed into the stuff that I was doing at work. I would get consulted or asked about things like when they were updating the logo, or when they were, just any number of things, updating the websites and things like that. They would seek my opinion. And that was before I even had this job. So, that all kind of led up to this, and it has turned out to be like a perfect blend for me between the science stuff and the creative stuff, because I get to do both all the time.
Right.
So, you said that, oh, I would have expected more like drawing and stuff like that. I do actually get to do quite a bit of that.
Oh, see, that's cool. That's why I do this podcast, so I can learn things like this where I go, "Oh, I didn't know any of that stuff before."
Yeah. So, like, I recently redesigned two of the brochures for the company, and I had done like a quick sketch, like on my iPad with like a digital pencil of like, oh, here's kind of what I'm thinking, and everybody like went nuts and they loved it.
Well, yeah, because you don't draw like I do. You actually draw well. You don't draw stick figures like me, and then people are like, "Great, well, I don't know what you want me to do with this." Yeah.
Practice, lots of practice.
Yeah, right. Mhm.
But now we have this like hand drawn style that we're using for all of our brochures, and it will, we're doing some iterations to the website, and then it'll be there. So yeah, it's a small enough company, and I appreciate that fact that I get to do some of that hands on stuff
Nice.
as well as some of the more, managerial level activities as well.
So I guess the why kind of would be to like kind of sum it up would be like I needed a job, I needed to start paying off student loans. I found a job or company that kind of let me use both of my skills or both skills, a couple of my skills that I really like, put them together. And then as I work through this company, I realize like, oh, I kind of want to stay here. They see my value, I see their value, and we kind of just like coexist together. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, had had I known that this was a job when I was, going through college, because I mean, I'm sure most people can't think of something off the top of their head that mixes art and science. It would be like
No,
maybe you do the illustrations for a textbook or something.
yeah, that like the cover. I mean, if there's like a cover art on a textbook, that's about the furthest thing. That's about as far as I go with art
Yeah.
and science in one. Yeah.
um, but you can go that route of being a scientific illustrator. I did know that that existed. That's a little like heavier on the art side versus the science side. And I thought about doing that, but it doesn't pay super great. And
It's very niche, like, there might not be a whole lot of jobs available or, like, sorry.
exactly. And I always sort of subconsciously was interested in marketing. It's a social science. There's a lot of psychology involved in it. So there's like, science within marketing itself. Um, but yeah, I didn't know that a job like this existed, or, we're starting to work with an external company that all they do is marketing for science companies. Like
Oh, wow.
their employees are like a bunch of me's. They're a bunch of scientists and people way smarter than PhDs who decided that they didn't want to be, at the bench doing the science anymore. They wanted something different. And so now they're getting to do this like creative and artistic aspect, but they understand the science for all their clients. And I was like, I didn't know that was a job. Like,
Yeah,
that's a future job for me.
yeah. I
So
well, then we can do a secondary follow-up
there you
interview, and we'll
go.
get that one too. Yeah, no, that and, like, that's kind of, a main reason of starting this podcast for me was, I wanna figure out what people do average on their job. I feel like we always think we know what people do, but I don't really know until you ask them. But the secondary portion of it was, like, I wanna know what's out there. Like, I don't know of all the jobs that exist. A lot of people don't, and I want people to have a resource to be able to go, "Oh, scientific illustrator. Didn't know that was a thing. Let me listen to Brandon talk to us, or something like that, and figure out there are paths out there, to suit any skill set really. Um, we kind of brushed over it, I think, but how do you get this job? The like actual physical how is it, an application process? Is it an hey, I know somebody that worked at the company, they put my resume to the top of the stack? How does that kind of go?
So our general hiring would be pretty similar to any other major company that does hiring. So there would be a job posting on our careers page on our website. You'd click on it. You'd fill out a short application. It would go to HR for preliminary screening, and then yeah, you'd send in your resume. Hopefully, get an interview. Do like a panel interview, and then be hired.
Okay.
So nothing really.
Nothing out of the like crazy out of the ordinary. Okay. Yeah, I always like to ask because I think that's important too. Is like I think a lot of people, I like, sanitation worker. I have no idea how you get that job. Like I don't know if it's hey, you got to know somebody or you got to go to school for it or whatever. So knowing that, hey, yeah, it's just kind of a typical application process. I think that's very very useful for people. And then your path to kind of getting this specific job once you get into the company, is it performance based? Is it hey, a lot of people just left and so they were trying to fill roles? Like how do you kind of move up within your own within that company?
So there's there's a benefit to it being a smaller or mid-sized company. We're probably about like at the subsidiary that I work at specifically, we're at probably around 100. Um, so that makes it pretty easy for people to move laterally and try different roles. Like we've had like scientists who work in the lab decide that they want to get more involved in the business side of the company, and so they've transitioned into a role in business development. Yeah. So there's some room there to explore different things, and me, I started out in administration. I was a secretary essentially, doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And then, I was given more responsibility and it turned into project management. And so I like dabbled there for a little bit and then, did various projects within that department. And then like I said, I was a product associate. I owned one of the products that we produce. So everything from talking to the people who make it to pricing and all that kind of stuff. Um,
What does that mean? That you're so like you invented a product and then brought it to them and we're like, "Hey, here's my product that I invented." And then they're like, "Cool, yeah, let's do it." Is that what we're talking about?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
It's
I
much
was
more
like, "How
like,
did I miss that?"
no, no. It's so like the subsidiary I worked for, we make a product, and then so that product is like something that you could buy. You can buy it off of our website. It's just like a reagent that's used in experiments.
Okay, gotcha.
But, we make ours a particular way and, we promote it and all that kind of stuff. So I owned that product. So anything about that, I managed the team, that did everything for it. Buck stopped with me for that particular product.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I get the terminology you're using now. Yes, I
Yes.
was
Yeah.
just a little bit I was like, "Wait, what is happening?" Okay. It's
No.
like I knew your science background went deep, but geez.
Yeah. No, I did not invent
Okay.
something. That would be cool. Yeah, so I was in that role when basically we got a new head of the business development unit, and he saw a need for increased marketing, which I had already identified. Like I knew that there was a
Been
gap.
advocating for, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I was doing that kind of stuff for my my one product, but I was like, the whole company needs this. Like,
Yeah.
let's make this broader. So,
Expand
so he
that.
and I were very aligned on that. And he pretty quickly was able to see, the scope of what I could bring from the creative and artistic side, and he really appreciated that and latched onto that, and saw that value, and yeah, was able to create this role for me, and make sure that I got that nice promotion.
Hey, there you go. That's what
Uh,
it all comes down to in the end.
yes, I mean,
Uh,
it was nice because, like I said, for a long time, for almost 5 years, I would do that kind of stuff here and there in the background because I really liked it. I would, hey, I'll do a cool newsletter. Hey, I'll make flyers for the
yeah,
activity committee. Like,
right.
um, that, all of that was extra. I
Mhm.
didn't have to do that. I wasn't necessarily getting paid for that.
Yeah, they say the best ability is availability. Just being able to be there and being like, "Hey, I can do it. Hey, I'm here." But then they look and they go, "Hey, Kelsey's always here. Like, why don't we just give her the job? Like,
Well,
she's
yeah,
the one
it was
doing it
like making
anyways."
myself
Yeah.
invaluable, making them
Mhm.
like see like, oh wow, like we could have something that looks like this if she's here.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's nice now to have
Nice.
the role officially.
Yeah. Is there do you have a team? Do you have a like, are you a hierarchy? Like how, is there when you say like manager, is it are you managing the products? Are you managing the people? Are you managing the what?
So at the moment, I don't manage like any internal staff. Like I'm not some manager.
Okay.
There is that future possibility. My my boss likes to explain sort of the career ladder as you're more and more responsible if goes wrong. um,
Right.
so I'm like kind of in the middle of that,
Okay.
and this is the first technical title where it would be appropriate for me to be somebody's boss should we decide to hire someone.
Okay.
But I do manage, like I mentioned earlier, we just hired an external vendor, and so basically that's a whole team of people, and I will be their main point of contact. I will be managing all of those activities. I will be making all of those decisions. Just a couple of things that go up to my boss.
Yeah, that's not me. I don't like doing that. Mm-mm. I like doing this one thing where I report to me, and if there's a problem, it's me, and if I got to yell at somebody, it's me. So I don't.
Having a really good supervisor is like such a huge game changer.
Oh yeah,
Like knowing that my boss and I are completely on the same page, that he trusts me and he will stand up for me should somebody try to like, hey, we didn't want to do that or this, that. Nope. He would be there in a second to say, no, this is what we decided on. So that makes it so that I can like enjoy this part of the process without like a fear of somebody's gonna be upset or like
yeah.
I'm
Or
gonna get
always like
in
looking over
trouble
your
or
shoulder.
yeah,
Who's
exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that can be invaluable. I mean, especially too if they're willing to like go to bat for you, even if they're like, "Hey, I may not have all the things, but I'm gonna go for bat for you." And then if we have to talk about something separate, you know what I mean? Of like, "Hey, I didn't like," we'll discuss, but we're always gonna present a strong front. I like that idea of like, "Hey, um, now we're gonna kind of move towards like what an average day looks like. So a couple things that I want to touch on is like what time do you typically start? Are you working from home? Are you working in an office? Are you, what time do you typically finish? And then, we can touch on like work-life balance too, of like, hey, when you're done, are you done? Or are you always on the phone? Are you always on call? What kind of is that situation? So I guess the first kind of jumping off point or starting point here would be what's an average day look like?
Um, Average day is working from home.
Okay, nice. That's
Um,
a plus.
yes, I occasionally will go into the office if, there's something that needs to be done there, but
You wanna get out of the house. Yeah.
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 But for the most part, I
Yeah.
work from home. I usually start, probably between 7:30 and 8, at least, checking emails on my phone while I'm, like, feeding Rafa and
Yeah,
letting the dogs out
getting
and
ready to go.
feeding
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, husband's on his own.
yeah.
Yeah. Feed
Um,
me, the kid, the dogs, husband
yeah,
figured out.
he'll sleep, it's fine. Probably later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so checking emails kind of while I do other stuff, just see if there's anything critical. And then I'll usually sit down at my desk and really get into work by like 8 or 8:30. Lots of checking email. There's usually, I don't know, 20 or 25 emails waiting for me in the morning. Because we work with a lot of like international just people for various reasons. And so we'll get emails from overnight.
Yeah, I've had multiple guests where they have international, clients or employees or, contacts, and I'm like, I don't know how you guys deal with that. I mean, luckily, I guess if you're not having to like vocally communicate with them or over the phone or whatever, then fine. But I could not deal with like, oh, the incessantness of.
When I was the product associate, and owned the product, we would have every other week a meeting with our partners in India who actually produced it. And so the meeting was like 9:30 a.m. for them, but it was 8:30 p.m. for us. So yeah, every other week I would have to yeah have a
Oh,
meeting at 8:30. It was
mm-mm. That's past my bedtime. I'm
I
in bed
hate
by
it.
8:30. I'd be like, "So, I'm taking this call from my bedroom. I'm
Yeah,
laying in
pretty
bed, about
much.
to go to sleep." Okay, so a lot of emails.
Yeah, just a lot of seeing if there's any new stuff. Um, a lot of it's like, oh, questions I asked yesterday, or, stuff like that that sort of bleeds over. And then usually I will check my calendar, see what meetings I have on there for the day. And then I have like a task planner where I actually have what tasks I'm supposed to be doing each day throughout the week. Otherwise, I just stuff will drop and I'll forget to do things. So
Oh, that happens to me. I mean, I have to stay organized. I have to have things written down too. Totally understand that.
yeah. So and then it's right now it's heading into conference season for the biotech realms. They have these like giant conferences where everybody comes and it's like, hey, here's what we do, here's what we're working on.
That seems like it could be pretty interesting. Like, maybe there's, like, some new, like, innovative thing that it's like, "Hey, this is what we're," and we're like, "We're at that level? Oh my gosh, okay."
Yeah. And there's ones that are, the World Vaccine Congress, like it's and
That'd be
so
interesting.
that's coming up in October. So for that, I'm, the main point of contact. So a lot of logistical stuff right now in terms of like getting our contracts all set and signed, starting to make shipping arrangements because it takes a really long time to ship like our booth set up and all that kind of stuff over to Europe. Um, Speaking opportunities, things like that. So I'm in that mode right now.
Okay.
But then, throughout the day, I'll do some of that. I'll get to do some design work, so that's nice. Whether it's like I just designed everything that will go on these like booth backdrops. They're like backlit, so they're like 7.5 feet
That
square.
creative side again
Yeah,
coming
so
out.
I've
Okay.
designed what goes on those,
Nice.
and like I said, the brochures and a bunch of the other literature that we'll have at our table. I get to design all that. Um,
Get
yeah.
I would not use the word get. We have different terminology. I'd say I have to do these things. I get to do these things. That's nice.
Yes, and that's really cool. Like, I
No, it
just
definitely is. If it's something you really enjoy, like it would be like if for this job I also had to watch Padre games. I'd be like, oh, I get no, I get to watch the Padre. I don't have
yeah,
to. Yeah, but
exactly.
I get what you're saying. Okay,
Yeah, because like,
totally
I think
understand.
it's really cool to
Mhm.
see, like I just picked up a print order of, our brochures that I designed, and it's, like, this huge stack, and they're, like,
Mhm.
glossy and beautiful
Nice.
and
But
shiny.
yeah, that's
I'm like,
pretty cool.
"I did that!"
That's
Like,
pretty cool.
I'm shipping that off to
Yeah.
Europe so other
Yeah.
people can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have a sense of pride, and I get good feedback from, from my boss and the other, business development people who attend the conferences that people really like the design and the style. It's really different. It's not something that you see a lot, kind of in the science realm, biotech
I feel
realm.
like it could be bland and boring sometimes. When you're
Exactly.
dealing
Like
with
it's very kind
science
of
stuff, it's
corporate feeling,
yeah.
or like everybody's using the same like 3D, modeled images of cells and stuff, which is cool and can totally show, like the intricacies of stuff, but it's just everywhere. It's saturated. You look around at the brochures for, 10 random biotechs and they're all going to be the same color palette, the same design style, the same, like just very yeah, like you said, bland and kind of boring.
Something, yeah, just yeah, you need something a little bit more, to catch somebody's eye or something like that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like I said, our design style is now this sort of like pencil sketch, like hand drawn style. A lot of brighter colors, there's, texture to our stuff. So, yeah, it's just kind of brings some of the fun back to science. Like, scientists are big nerds who were like, "Ooh, that was such a cool thing." Like, I don't know, you open a science book, you're gonna go straight to the diagrams and things.
Go to a chemistry class, those guys are always burning something or making explosions or mixing 2 things together. Yeah, of course. It's always good to have fun at your job if you can.
Yes.
Is there so that's the
That's
afternoon,
that's the day, yeah.
okay.
I'll usually kinda split it up, like, days of the week. So, like, oh, on Thursdays is when I do most of my design work, Mondays when I do, like, all of this conference emailing and stuff like that. So, I'll kinda break it up like that. It's easier for me to, like, stay on task, like, for those specific aspects versus bounce back and forth. I have to some, but I try not.
But if you know, like, "Hey, I can get into creative mind or creative mode Thursday morning because Thursdays are the day I'm designing," then that's, like it's nice to know, I guess, what's coming up.
Yeah. And it also helps to sort of like spread out my week like that so that I can go, oh, okay, I know that I have to take, Rafa to school and an appointment on this day. So I'll make sure to only, allot myself kind of one task for that day because I know I have these other things I need to go do. Because if at the end of the week, by the next time, I'm doing a check in with anybody, I'll have an update on anything if I've gotten to all of it during the week, which that level of flexibility is, super great for
Is
me.
that more what you're dealing with is typically like a week to week basis for work? You know what I mean? Like where as opposed to like a day to day where somebody's checking in the next day, "Hey, okay, did you get everything done?" It's more of like a, "Hey, update me on the week" kinda thing?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so it leaves flexibility for me to get to things when it makes sense for me to get to them. Or, yeah, just have the flexibility to be able to do stuff.
As you need.
Yeah, just other things that need to be done.
Well, and it's not so rigid of a schedule where it's like, "Hey, I can't make an appointment for X because I have to, A, B, and C this day. I can just do A and I'll put B and C tomorrow, and I know I have a freer day tomorrow." Okay,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Being
Uh,
salaried helps.
yeah, that's a perfect segue into my next question. So now that we know your salary, that's yeah, one of the big things I want to know, we ask is hourly or salary. And then is there a pay range for your position? So you don't have to get, specific unless you want to on, hey, this is what I make, but if you could, enlighten us on maybe like a range of or hey, this is somewhere where you can expect to be, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think average range is probably between like 90 to 100,000 a year.
Mhm.
Um, for that obviously changes
Of
dramatically
course.
with the size of the company you're
Yeah.
working for,
If you're working for
where
Pfizer
where in the
versus
company you're
sure.
or where in the country you're working,
Very
all
true.
that kind
Very
of
true.
stuff. Yeah, so and also how your company does their like laddering structure.
Mhm.
So that actually really worked in my benefit because it was most appropriate based on what I was doing to put me at this manager level.
Nice.
Well, that means that I have to get
That's the
paid the
next
same as
part.
any
Bump.
other manager across
Mhm.
any of the subsidiaries under the
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Nice.
so that was probably a 30% raise for me, which was, yeah, hugely significant.
Yeah, that's not too shabby.
And so, but it does. It goes a long way in terms of trust and having that flexibility. They're going to trust me to do this job, and it's not about clocking in your 8 hours at the end of the day, but some days it's 10 hours, and some days it's 5 hours, and it's fine. Like,
Some days creativity strikes at 9 o'clock at night, and I start
yeah,
drawing at 9 o'clock at night, and I'm just like, "Yeah,
exactly,
this is what I wanna do." Okay.
exactly.
But again, if it's something you're enjoying, it's less of work at that point. It's still work. I mean, I don't like the saying of like, "Oh, if you enjoy it, it's not work." No, it's still work. Like, you don't get to necessarily do whatever you wanna do, but it's less worky. It's more of like a, "Hey, this is something I enjoy. I don't mind doing it." Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then benefits, is there, I'm assuming medical, dental, full benefits, all that jazz. Is there benefit that we and this might be creative now that I'm kind of like thinking of it. Is there a benefit that we as the general public wouldn't see? So if is there something that you either get to go to cool conferences or I get to, use my creative side, maybe something like that, but is maybe there's something that we haven't touched on that you're like, "Oh, this is cool."
Yeah. Um, there are definitely some cool conferences. I went to a cool conference this year that was in Huntington Beach and got to
Oh,
stay in a nice hotel right on the beach.
nice. Nice,
So
plus,
yeah,
plus.
there's also like some travel opportunities because all these conferences are all over the U.S. and all over the world, um, and so that's a potential plus if you like travel and want to travel for work. Um, and then typically, for with most biotechs, there are fairly good stock options and stock benefits also. And so, a lot of people will start out at a small biotech or a small pharma company that's got a really good idea, and they'll get a bunch of stock when it's really cheap, because it's granted to you as, and it can be granted for, like for your annual promotion or a bonus or something can be both a monetary amount and stock grant.
Options. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, then if they get big and they do really well, then you're set and,
Then I'm
they'll
out and see y'all later.
yep,
I'm cashing
and
out.
kinda move
Yeah.
on to the next one.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, the stock options in this particular, like, type of company is not something that I was aware of, until I was there, and even then, it took a while that I was like, "Oh,
Now I
this is
understand.
what
Yeah.
happens,
Why
and
is this so
this
yeah,
is."
why is this so beneficial? Why is everybody
Mhm.
all Oh, okay. I get you. Yeah, that makes sense that if you get in on the ground level and you help kind of build a company up, you should be able to, you know, be rewarded. Um, Now that we've kind of discussed doing the job, we've kind of discussed job hierarchy, pay. Real quick, work-life balance. So like if you're, your salary, so we know that there is no clocking in or out, but is there like do people bother are people bothering you all the time after after 6, after 5? Is it nonstop calls and whatever? Or is it like, hey, I'm salary, but they know I'm done when I'm done.
Yeah, no, it's pretty chill. I don't have stuff that I have to get to that's super late or, people emailing or needing things at all hours. My boss lives in DC, in Washington, DC. And so, he's pieced out by 3 o'clock my time.
Yeah. So for Kelsey's based on the West Coast again. Just I don't know if we covered that or not, but Kelsey's based on the West Coast. So that yeah, that's yeah. If he's out, then I'm out.
Right. And
Yeah.
I mean, also, again,
Mm,
back to having a really great supervisor. He really values his work-life balance. His job is not his whole life and identity. I have worked for those bosses and it's horrible because they don't you're just not on the same page about where work falls in your priorities. So having a supervisor where that matches up is like the sweet spot because, you know, we're both gonna totally respect when the other one is off, when we're on vacation, when it's, and you know that if they're reaching out to you after hours kind of thing, it's important. Uh, and we want to like then support each other.
yeah, it's not gonna be something frivolous. It's not happening all the time. It's not the boy who cried wolf situation where, hey, every little thing is a escalated to the top of the pile. But so it's like if somebody is reaching out, there's something's going on that I should probably know about.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's nice. Sometimes they're late evenings or, I'll have a week where, there's just kind of a lot of stuff reaching a critical point at the same time. And, so then there'll be a week of I'll finish at, 6 for dinner and everything and put Rafa down and then I'll just come back and do some more
Gotta
work
do a
stuff.
couple more things. Yeah.
Just to kind of stay on top of everything. And there's also busier and slower seasons like across the year for this particular sector.
Okay.
Summer is really slow, I've discovered. There's just not as much going on because it's such a global industry. In Europe, a lot of people take off a long time for summer. And so, if the person you're trying to do collaborative work with isn't there, stuff just
They're
slows.
on holiday.
Exactly. They're on holiday. You get a lot of out of offices. Um,
What I really like about their take on it too, though, and this is maybe just my experiences. I don't want to, stereotype a whole continent, but my take on it is when I was working in an office and I have to put an out of office or something like that, I'm always like, man, like, I don't know, should I not? Like, are they going to be upset that I'm not? Blah blah blah. They're like out of office. I'm out of here. See y'all when I get back. I don't care if you don't like it. Tough luck.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
It's very just yeah, it's just like matter of fact
Mhm.
because it is common
Yeah.
and
It's
expected
my
that
vacation. Why would
people
I
take
not?
vacation,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And yeah, that's not always the case here. But yeah, so summer is slow, which is great for me. Like this summer, I was able to get to some of the stuff I wanted to learn stepping into this new role. I had time to like read articles and things like that. It wasn't so like go, 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 finish this project, get this ready.
On to the next one.
Yeah. So I had some time to kind of get my feet under me as I
Like
started.
career development almost. Like,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of like figure out what I'm doing a
And
little bit better. Sure.
right. And then right now it's starting to like ramp up a little bit because the conferences are starting. The business development team is going to be traveling a whole bunch the next couple months. So yeah, it's just so then there will be like a push and probably some later nights or longer weeks over the next quarter, the last quarter of the year. December is pretty slow. January is pretty slow. So there's these different times of year where I know it's going to be busy. But having kind of a reliable pattern like that is helpful because then I can let my husband know like, hey, I have to go back to work this week in the evening or whatever, and like we plan for that.
Well, and then being able to like block off vacation too must be like, hey, I'm gonna be able to take this time off. You figure it out, and then we can go do something together. Like that's cool.
Yeah,
The next part of the podcast that we're going to slide into here is I have come up with some questions. We kind of discussed this earlier about how they were job specific questions when I thought I knew your job title a little bit better than I do now. First question I have is as a marketing manager, communications manager, when you're dealing with vendors, how do you how do you find the balance between this is something serious that I need to be delivering, but I also don't want it to come across as like I'm either coming down on you or I don't want, I'm not here, you're not here kind of thing. But this is something that's serious. This does need to be brought to your attention. How do you do that in like a respectful manner, I guess?
yeah. I mean, you always want to try to maintain the relationship that you've built with your external team and your internal team also. Um, but with like the vendor that we've just hired, it's they're going to want to provide everything that they can because they're excited, and so they're going to want to offer, oh well, we can do this and the other thing, and being able to reel some of that back, and be able to say, you know, no to stuff essentially. um,
How do you say no, but not come across as like no? You know what I mean? Like where it's like, yeah, that's a great idea, but no, or so. But it's just that's always such a weird line for me to walk or like to know.
I always just go back to thinking about it like they're a person. Like I'm a person, they're a person, and I've always taken this tact also like in the other situation where I'm talking to my boss or the CEO or something. It's like this is their job. They're gonna go home at the end of the night and you know change into their pajamas. Like we're gonna do these same things. And so I approach it kind of with that in mind and with a sense of like we're still on the same team, like, we're trying to accomplish the same thing, like, but I'm constrained by this budget, and if there's nothing I can do to change that budget, then, we gotta work to figure out how to not go over that budget, and approach it as, like, a teamwork thing, as, like, I need your help, like, I need you to help me figure out how to do this.
So yeah, okay, I like that of like, hey, we can't do this, but let's cooperate together and find something we can do. And so that it makes them feel like they're a part of the solution rather than just a like, nope, sorry,
Right.
figure it out on your own kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and having that, like, collaborative relationship, I think is really important, um, for, yeah, a team that you're hiring to do services for you, or your own employees, or, just, yeah, any sort of collaborative environment.
That makes sense. Yeah, the kind of teamwork makes the dream work kind of thing. I mean, for lack of another dumb slogan or whatever, but yeah. Um, with more meetings and we kind of discussed working from home, more meetings being over Zoom or other programs. Um, how like what advice would you have for people who want their digital voice heard better? Because, like, in meetings, I can get my voice heard no problem. Like, I can be loud. I mean, I'm a little louder than the average person. I don't really care about making a fool of myself. But, like, how in the digital world can I portray those things? Or I guess, yeah, make my voice heard.
I mean, that's a really interesting question.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think that I always notice people who get into the meeting a little bit early and are maybe chatting with somebody else. So you're not just like entering into an empty room where everybody's sort of awkwardly looking at each other. It's nice to sort of jump in and you're like, oh, like, what are you talking about? Like in the same situation as if you walked into the meeting room and some people were already chatting, you could sort of just, join in or listen and okay, the meeting's going to start soon. But then it feels more natural later on if those people then speak up because I sort of already was hearing them when I came in. So if you have an opportunity to sort of get into the meeting early and somebody else is in there, strike up a conversation, like you just sort of become part of like they're part of the meeting, like of
Hmm.
putting on the meeting, even if you're not.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
sure. It's
then,
just, but it's, yeah,
yeah, so later
familiarity.
on, if you pipe up and ask a question, or if you, laugh or make a little quip at something,
Hmm.
it doesn't feel so jarring because like you've
Or
already
out of
heard that
place.
person's
Yeah.
voice before. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that might be something to like.
No, I think that's a great tip because I didn't even think of that. Because I was more of the like when I came up with the question, I was like, okay, like could I do like bold in my email? Like, do I have a catchy title? Like, what? How do I? But yeah, with the Zoom meetings and stuff like that, that may yeah come in a little early. Make sure you have your camera on. I know it's not everybody's favorite thing in the world, but those are the people who are going to get noticed more. And yeah, and come in a little early. Introduce yourself. Don't be the quiet one. Yeah, totally.
I think as far as like your written digital voice, my like top tip for emails is don't write like a block of text in your email. Break it up to like a bunch of smaller paragraphs, or like if you can make a list and like bullet or number stuff like that, it's so much easier for people to digest really quickly, and that's appreciated in an email, versus like somebody sends you a novel, like that's just like, oh my gosh, okay, I'll get to that
It's
later.
so daunting. Yeah. Even if the other one's more work, like even if the other one is more words, more ideas, more things, if it's broken up, idea, 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 and not just boom, then yeah, I mean that, yeah, totally. That's weird how that is.
And trying to just be like clear about what the ask is. That's for me too, is like I'll read through 'em and I'm just like, what do they want from me? What do I need to do? Because that's when I'm going through my emails and I have so many and I have so many other things I'm doing. I'm like, okay, I need to be able to get from this very quickly. what they need of me. Not in like a what do you want? Like a,
No, like,
matter. It's
I'm
just
here to help, but I
I
need
just
to know
need
what
to
you want help
ingest
with.
what it is
Yes.
that you
Yeah.
need me to do
Yeah.
so that I can assess, okay, is this a higher priority than what I'm already working on? Can this wait 2 days? Do I need to respond immediately? Um, so trying to make that as clear as possible, like even in the title, there's a way to just like make it clear what the ask
This
is.
is what it is. Yes, that's
Yeah,
what I'm talking about. Okay.
yeah.
And then my last one that I have, this was more, communications based as opposed to, but what's like the biggest communication roadblocks you face? Or like what's the biggest, I guess, maybe just roadblocks in your everyday job that you're like, man, if Brandon had a magic wand or was a genie and could just boom, get rid of this one thing for me, it would make the world of difference.
A lot of that is just like our external messaging. So I think trying to figure out how to get people to actually see it and read it
Engage.
and engage. Yeah. Um, that's probably like the trickiest part. Figuring out how to say, like writing copy is really hard. I've discovered.
Okay. Where's my producer when I need her? Man, I wish you could hear that because we just had that bit of a discussion yesterday of how I'm not good at writing copy. I don't like writing copy. It's just not my thing. But her stance is in order to get better at it, you have to do it. And
Yep.
so I
Yep.
just don't like it. Man,
I
that's
know.
funny that you mentioned
It's
that.
it's hard. It's hard. And I have to write it for our social media posts, for our, all the text that you see on our website, stuff like that. And it's tricky to try to figure out, how do you explain what you need to explain? How do you get across like the key point that you want your audience to take away?
And also like highlight something
Not
cool that
bore the
happens or
pants off
something.
of
Yeah.
people.
How
Yeah,
do I
like
like give you a highlight or a boom so that yep.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. How do we appeal to our target audience? What kind of language do we use? What kind of personality does our brand have? Are we, you know, hey bro, blah blah, like are we more
More
casual? Are we
casual, more
more
buttoned up, we have to be,
yeah, or is
"Hello,
it
sir or madam." Da 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 da
exactly.
da. Yes. Okay.
Are we gonna be very formal in our writing? Are we gonna use slang? Are we,
Mhm.
how all of
That's
that
interesting, yeah.
all of those
Yeah, I
decisions.
think if there was, like, slang on all my medical or prescribed, might be like, "Oh, I don't know if I wanna go with this company." But then it's also if there's a bunch of words that I don't know, I also might be like, "Hey, I don't really wanna go with this people," like, I don't know what all these things they're saying. Okay.
Exactly. So I think, yeah, copywriting is probably the hardest.
Well, I don't have that magic wand because if I did, I would have used it on myself already.
Yes.
Yeah, not my favorite thing either. The last bit of the podcast that we have here that we like to do and that I find most interesting because I get to kind of give you the mic here is time for guest promotion. So is there something that either a side business you have, a small business you want to promote, a charity cause, or just something you want to bring people's attention to? Or do you just want to talk to the audience? It's your time.
I don't exactly have a side hustle. I do art stuff, but it's mostly for fun. So painting or portraits or things like that. I'll occasionally take commissions from friends of friends, things like that.
Is there somewhere where people could find that if they wanted to like get something commissioned or just check out your art?
Sure. My art Instagram is Max and Mabel. And you can email me at the same Max and Mabel at gmail.com.
Okay. And if you're listening on the car and you don't have time to write this down or whatever, I will put all the links in description. So go to the YouTube, click on the description, and you'll see Kelsey's art page and any other links she wants to give us now.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my fun thing that I like to do. As far as cause stuff, yeah. I have am attempting to get more and more activated in the disability activism space, especially for kids. So, kids with disabilities. My son is disabled, and so we have been inundated in that world, but it is so supportive and wonderful. And so, a lot of things like just pay attention if you ever go to a park with kids, and sort of ask yourself, like, could a kid in a wheelchair play the same as a kid not in a wheelchair at this park?
I
Um,
don't you
you
wanna
know,
know what? Honestly, I don't think I've ever thought that, and that's
yeah,
probably something on me, but it's also probably something that most people haven't, it's not, we're all so
exactly,
self-absorbed and, worried about our own world, and like, going in and thinking like, "Oh, yeah, hey, like, how would they even get into the like, that could be
exactly.
an issue."
Yeah, all
Like,
that kind of stuff. Like, how many
"Oh,
parks do you
wow."
go to that have wood chips? Like,
Yeah,
or
or
all
gravel
sand
or
or
yeah.
gravel. Yeah. So, and um, there is a lot of adaptive equipment out there for parks. There are swings that you can like drive your electric wheelchair onto, and then it closes up the back and swings. Uh, there's like the play structures, they make them with ramps so the kids with walkers or wheelchairs or other, ambulatory devices can access that same play. Um, because for kids, play is so important. Like it's how they learn so much stuff. It's how they socialize, and it's really unfortunate that a lot of the time kids with disabilities are excluded from the same kind of play because they just don't have access. Uh,
Well, and it's we live in a society that's already like, a little bit maybe turn an eye to kind of people that are a little different or whatever. And then to also then go, hey, and you can't, come and join like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That's something that I, again, like I said, never thought of, but is massively important. And that I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking to get more involved in some of the, community level planning for parks and things like that, to kind of bring those things up. Because, as they make renovations or, make changes or plan new parks, all of that should be front and center because it's not like it's going to be to the detriment of able-bodied kids. Everybody's still gonna enjoy it just the same, and if anything, it makes stuff safer and, a little more spacious,
Yeah.
and
And
people
more
generally
is
love
better.
that.
So if
Yeah,
more can enjoy it, then that's
yeah,
better. It's a very
exactly.
simple equation here, people. Come on.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, totally. That is an awesome thing to bring attention to people's minds, I think. I think that's an awesome way to kind of, wrap up the podcast here. But if there's, anything else, is there like a, you know, website people can go to kind of like learn more about this or learn more how to be an ally or be a, just a helpful citizen?
Yeah, so not a specific website, but I would say the number one thing that helped me to get more involved with all of this is following disabled content creators on whatever platform that is. So whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram or anything else, search out disabled content creators in whatever it is that you like. I guarantee they're there. So, if you're into, makeup or fashion, find disabled content creators within those spaces. Anything that you're interested in, there will be somebody with a disability who's doing the same thing. Because getting that firsthand learning um, is invaluable. So,
No, I totally agree. That's why I do the podcast is learning from people firsthand. It's invaluable. But thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. That's all I have for you. Until we're, at the next promotional stage or the next, thing, and we will check back in and have a little follow-up interview.
yeah, that'll be fun. Of
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this for me.
course. Anytime.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Jobology podcast. Thanks, Kelsey, for taking the time out of your day to do that for me. Before I let you guys go, a couple quick reminders. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and follow at Jobology Podcast on all major social media platforms. And make sure you guys are commenting what jobs you would like to see on upcoming episodes. Like we always say to end every episode, make good choices.